Human nature, worlds in contrast. Hello everyone, my name is Al Persohn. You can contact me at pastor@mascot.church or in the comments below if you like. If you like, share, subscribe these videos, YouTube might send them on to somebody else. Well, is there a fundamental difference in the way that people view human nature? Is understanding that somehow able to help us navigate the really interesting, challenging times that we are in? I think so. We're in a very unusual time in Western civilization right now. We are kind of at a fork in the road. We'll either collapse or reclaim ourselves. I'm not really sure. The first thing to get our head around here is that the basic thinking that drives a lot of our modern moral decisions, a lot of our economic planning decisions and so on, is the thinking that people are basically good. And if you give them a good system to operate in and within, everything will be fine, everything will be fair. And the idea here is that if you give everybody equal amounts, then people will hold hands, sit around campfires, sing kumbaya, share everything equally, etc. You might call that socialism or whatever, give it any name that you want, but that's kind of the philosophical underpinning of that drives our world today, or so much of our world today. And of course, then these things come from a large number of inputs that we're not going to talk about in this brief video, but will get you thinking. Of course, if this is the case, then that everything should be equal and we should all have the same amount as everybody else, we're going to have to design or build our economies or our nations, our policies in such a way as to enable this. This becomes a real challenge. What we're doing here then is we're saying, well, if there is inequality or if there is injustice, which is both very, very hard words to define in this context, then the problem is the system, not people, because people are basically good. People are basically fine, right? And so there are broken systems. The system is systematically geared against certain groups. You've kind of seen that. You kind of hear this going on. And so what we need to do then is somehow we need to fix this. And the thinking that drives this is, well, how would we fix it? Well, as a goal, what we should have is, equality of outcomes. Everybody should have the same. No matter what happens, we should all have the same amount of stuff to play with, because obviously our view of human nature is that people are basically good, basically all right, so everybody should have the same. In other words, Johnny, who works 14 hours a day and earns $150,000 a year in a backbreaking job, there's Johnny, who works 14 hours a day, earns $150,000 in a backbreaking job. There's also Billy, and Billy sends phony resumes to companies who he desperately hopes won't hire him, and he basically lives on benefits. You know what I'm talking about here. You've seen these too. Well, if equality is of outcome are what's important, then Billy should get some of Johnny's. And even though Johnny worked really hard, he's going to have to give up some of Billy's. Now, not willingly. It's not like Johnny's going to go and say, well, here, have $75,000 a year, Billy. No, it will have to be taken from him because it's going to have to be done fairly and equitably. Can you hear these words that we're hearing all the time? Now, what we want to do here is, of course, because human nature is good and everybody's nice and it's fine, we're going to have to equalize the Johnnies and the Billies of this world. And what's going to really take place is a thing called equalization by impoverization. We won't do it by raising Billy up. Oh, we will, kind of, but raise him up at Johnny's expense. We're going to impoverish. So you kind of see this happening. This is kind of that socialist left thinking that's really going on here. And so I'll pop some images on the screen because you can see all the things that feed into this. And these images are well known, but we can just take a moment and see what's going on. Let's just see if my screen will allow this to happen. I think it will. And of course, we have all of these social movements that are going on today. We see just vast numbers of lives being lost at the hands of, in communist dictatorships. We see all of these trends taking place that somehow seem to, they seem to distract us from the fact that it's equalization by impoverization that's going on. I love these images here. Not only are we being impoverished in that way, we're being governed from a very, very high end. So you can see this here. Crickets would be a game changer for climate change. We hear a lot about climate change, don't we? Let's do this for the good of the planet. Let's just govern everybody to the very end. Oh, look at the one below that. Liver cancer rates are surging in Australia, and climate change could be to blame. Right. And then, of course, in the middle, we've got Extinction Rebellion that are using a special glue that requires jackhammers to cut them to get them off the road. Like, why would you do this? And on the right-hand side is somebody feeding crickets to their daughter. I feed my daughter crickets. It's going to save on grocery bills, and it's going to save the planet. Well, there's more bizarre things that take place when you think about this. These are pictures, and I'm going to show you some videos here from China. What are these things in these images here? What's going on? Well, let me just pop the videos up, and we're just going to talk about the excesses and the places where we end up if we take this equalization by impoverization to the extreme, because I think I have a good way of explaining the differences here. Now, I don't normally do this, but these are just really wonderful. So I'm going to pop up a bit of some YouTube videos. I'll just tick you through these, and I'll link them down below here. The first thing we want to do is have a look at the wonders of shared bicycle graveyards in China. Now, I'm going somewhere with this, so you should be able to see these. I'll just turn the video on, and I'm not going to play all of it, but what are these things going on here? What's going on? This is the video channel called No Place to Place. What is this? These are shared electric bikes. Remember the electric bikes that used to be everywhere? Well, look at that. Look at that. Look. And this is, whoa, this is amazing. These are all electric bicycles that are being dumped in China. Yeah, you say, well, whoa, look at this. Just tons and tons, thousands and millions of them. And all these things will have to be scrapped. And it just goes on and on and on and on. So that's the first of two videos. Just give a little, oh, look at this. It just seems like it never ends. Let me just take you to the partner video of that one on the channel. Close this one. And it's not only electric bikes that are being dumped, but this is the this is the electric bikes, but it's now also electric cars that are being dumped, not being sold, not being used. Now, there's a lot behind this. Bad government planning is one thing, but look at all these electric vehicles nobody is buying or using. Well, the laws have just changed. They can't. See, this is a command economy. Okay, so, and this is important here, ladies and gentlemen. Oh, I just did this. This is important here. These vehicles are all registered. There. Okay? They all have license plates on them. They're legal to run. Okay? And just look at that. Tens or hundreds of thousands of them that will all have to be scrapped. Frighteningly bad for the environment. All these batteries, the batteries are deteriorating just as they sit. They don't like to do that. The equipment is just deteriorating, and it goes on and on and on and on. So you say, why am I saying that? Am I taking pot shots at the Chinese at all? No. This is the comments I'm making here have to do with the fact that once you start to think that that people are all good and you can just equalize everybody and everything, you end up having to get to a place where you are centrally planning everything, where government controls everything. Okay, so one of the things that comes to pass then is this whole idea of govern me harder, daddy. Obviously everything is fine, but I don't have as much as the guy next door. Seems the government isn't doing what it should be doing, and I just don't know what's going on. So maybe the government could make laws so that I can have some of his, and can he have some of mine? Well, not really. No, because we're getting to our story here in just a moment. We're getting to our conclusion. And this is really interesting. Now, when we think about this central planning going on and all these things, and I'm throwing a lot at you here, but just hear me out. When we think about this, we have to ask ourselves if the people at the top of this, the figureheads, are actually living the way they want us to live. They're saying, well, we should all be giving up for the planet and we should all be doing that. I know you've all seen these billionaires who go to places like Davos in their private jets. You've all seen that, and you've seen these very, very wealthy, highly influential politicians and business people telling us the world is all, the ocean levels are going to rise, etc., buying huge oceanfront properties. Something just doesn't make sense. Do these people who preach this and teach it actually live that way? How does it actually work? What's going on? Now, again, the basis, the selling point for all of this is that all people are equal and we just need to equalize their outcomes and everybody will be happy. It's just really, I'm just not sure how consistent that is. We're going on here. We're going to just find out, just have a couple, look at a couple more pictures. And that's this one here. Want to just be sure that my OBS, and again, more bicycle graveyards. Well, we remember this young lady. The world was supposed to have ended a couple of days before I recorded this video. Yes, fascinating, fascinating. Now, we also get this place where in governments wanting to govern us harder, we see that some parties want to push it a little bit harder than others. They'll want to bring controls a little tighter. This is a very interesting montage of two images from the newly elected Australian government. And you notice on the left is the government in power now, the govern me harder side of politics. And don't worry, the image on my right here, they also govern you harder, but it's they're both different pieces of the same pie. But you notice the ones on the left wearing the face masks. So we're you kind of get what's going on here. That whole keeping everybody in fear, keeping everybody governed. I think you know where I'm going with this. It's really, really fascinating. So let me just nail this here. Let's get to the point. The driving force behind a lot of what we see today, just to repeat myself, is the notion, the idea that everybody is basically pretty equal. And that if we could just equalize outcomes, everybody would be happy. If everybody had, let's just pick a figure, $50,000, that's way too low these days. Let's just pick it anyways, $50,000 a year, and the same vehicle. You can't have a car anymore. You can see that. It'll have to be a bicycle, and you won't be able to move from one part of your city to another. You have the 15-minute cities. And so, but let's just say that we've all got there. Let's say that it's a world where we live in these mega cities and everything is 15 minutes from home, and you have to go there in a cheap and nasty electric vehicle that you can never charge, or maybe you get to walk there. You go only by public transport, and you have the same as the next guy. And you look, and he's also got the same amount of money. He's got the same vehicle as well. And he wants to have a third child, but he has to get permission to have a third child. You've already got your two. You're saying, right, but you're heavily governed. And the whole idea is that this would be the way that everybody would be happy. Oh, really? Oh, really? You really believe that, do you? I don't know how you came to this channel if you believe that. But truthfully, is this even realistic? I'm going to link below a video that I did a couple of years ago on what happened in Montreal when the police no longer governed and went on strike for a period of time. Now, Canadians are supposed to be nice people who would be the ultimate sit around the fire and sing kumbaya kind of people, truly, quite truly. But you'll notice something that happened when there were no constraints put on that city for just a short period of time. Quite an interesting video and quite an interesting observation. Now, the biblical position, and really, I would say, the historical position for many years, and maybe even the position held by countries all over the world, I'm just not sure, is vastly different, though. It sees human nature in a completely different, with a completely different understanding. It doesn't say, or let me say that again. I'm really excited. This topic is interesting. I'm enjoying this. The Western driving view, or the driving view we're seeing, is that everybody's equal and you equalize everybody. That's all fine because people are basically good. But that's not consistent with the biblical worldview, and it's not really the way successful nations have operated at all. I'm going to put some scriptures up on the screen, and then I'll show you the difference and the contrast between the two. This is the first time I've presented this kind of a talk like this, so kind of struggling for phrases. I hope you're still with me. So let's just pop through these pretty quickly. You can look these up easily enough, but this will help us to see the contrast in the worldview regarding human nature. Jeremiah 17:9 says, let's get this one up here, says, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately sick. Who can understand it? Well, that's interesting. I thought that if you equalized everything because everybody is good, everything would be fine. In Psalm 14:2-3, it says, "The Lord looks down from heaven on the children of man, to see if there are any who understand, who seek after God. They have all turned aside. Together they have become corrupt. There's none who does good, not even one." Isn't that interesting? That seems to be somehow at contrast with the worldview that exists today that says if you just equalize, everything would be fine. Paul in Romans says, and he's in a context where the Jews have had the gospel, the truth of Jesus Christ before, and the non-Jews are coming into this kingdom, this community now, and he's helping them navigate this change in their position, their culture. What then? Are we Jews any better off? No, not at all. For we have already charged that all, both Jews and Greeks, are under sin. As it is written, none is righteous, no, not one. No one understands, no one seeks for God. All have turned aside. Together they have become worthless. No one does good, not even one. Their throat is an open grave. They use their tongues to deceive. The venom of asps is under their lips. Their mouth is full of curses and bitterness. Their feet are swift to shed blood. In their paths are ruin and misery, and the way of peace they have not known. There is no fear of God before their eyes. We now have an opportunity, after me sharing these scriptures with you and talking earlier about this whole sense of whether people are basically good, to contrast these two and see the difference. Let me do it really quickly here. I don't want to repeat myself too much, but just for the sake of my conclusion, I'm going to need to. The general driving worldview is that people are basically good. And if you give everybody the same amount, everyone will be happy. If you ever raised children, if you realize that that just isn't the way that people, that's just something, human nature doesn't do that. Human nature doesn't do it. You know, if that guy had 50,000 and I had 50,000 and so on, I kind of want to get some more of, well, you know what I'm talking about, don't you? Well, the Christian worldview, the biblical worldview, and the worldview held by so many others is that man is desperately, completely depraved and wicked. And that if you leave him unrestrained by good laws, unrestrained by a functioning culture and society that holds the wicked accountable, whatever, he will become so desperately wicked very, very quickly. Look at the Montreal story. So there is a profound worldview difference. When most of us look at the world and look at people, we don't really believe that everybody is going to be happy with equality. No, because we're not ourselves happy with it. Say, I want that little bit more. You want that bit of greed thing going on. You know, that's just right at the core of all of this. Remember, the Apostle Paul said it's the love of money is the root of all evil. Yeah, all right. The biblical worldview, on the other hand, the one I hold to, is that people are not good. There is no good in people, basically. People are basically wicked and need to be restrained. I know what I'm like. Now, you say maybe not so evil as to be mass murderers and, destroyers of civilization, but not inherently good either. And of course, the Bible sets a very high standard for what is good. So this has been an unusual message for me. We could call it Govern Me Harder, Daddy, if you wanted to. But we're really just taking this opportunity to answer a couple of worldview questions. And we need to think about where our culture, our society might be going if things continue the way that they are, and ask ourselves if things are continuing on the downward trend that we've seen over the last couple of years. Maybe things are changing. Who knows? What are the implications of all of that? My name is Al Persohn. This has been a quick look at human nature, worlds in contrast. Come back again next week, and I'm happy to talk a little more about this if you like. Look at the videos that I'm sharing below. You'll find them interesting. God bless. We'll catch you later.